Hi, I'm James Hamilton from Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal, and today I'm going to help you choose the right bandsaw blade. There are a lot of factors to consider when you choose a bandsaw blade, and making the wrong choice can have a dramatic effect on your saw's operation. If you're having trouble cutting straight, or your saw cuts slowly or leaves a ragged surface, you probably just have the wrong blade installed. It can get a little bit confusing when you look at the labels on the boxes, so let's look at the most important factors to consider when you buy your next blade. The most common blade materials you're likely to have to choose from are carbon steel, bimetal, and carbide. Carbon steel blades are the most common. This is the one that you're probably going to use on your saw. They're economical, and if they're made properly, they stay sharp a long time. Bimetal blades are a little bit different in that they have a harder steel strip welded to the front where the teeth are. So they last longer, but they're often significantly more expensive. And while bimetal blades are used for woodworking, they're more often used for cutting metal. Finally, carbide blades are mostly steel, but they have little carbide teeth welded on, like a table saw blade. But they stay sharp a really long time. The problem is they're hard to find in widths narrower than 1/2 inch, which is too wide for many curves. And they're about 10 times as expensive as steel tooth blades. That's why they're generally just used for resawing thick materials. These terms are usually applied to carbon steel blades, and they refer to the temper applied to the back side of the blade. A hardback blade is heat treated all the way through. That makes them stiffer, so they'll cut straight lines with less drift. They're an excellent choice for ripping or cross-cutting, or for resawing, or for joinery cuts such as tenons. Flexback blades, on the other hand, are only heat treated at the teeth, leaving the back more flexible, so it will better absorb the stresses of cutting curves. They may drift a bit more on the straight cuts, but they're far better suited for the tight curves. Most books and articles tell you to use the widest blade you can for the radius that you're cutting at any particular time. They say that because a wider blade works like the rudder on a ship, which kind of guides your cut, helping you to stay on course. You can make a straight cut much easier with a 1/2 inch wide blade than you can with a 1/4 inch wide blade. Likewise, a gradual curve is easier to make smoothly with a 3/8 inch wide blade than it is with a 3/16. The reason for this is because the wider the blade is, it prevents you from overcorrecting while you steer, whether you're going straight or around a curve. If you have a very narrow blade, you're likely to correct much easier, ending up with a ragged cut, than if you're working with a wider one. The most common tooth geometry you're likely to encounter are standard, hook, or skip tooth blades. Standard teeth are evenly spaced with zero rake, meaning the cutting faces are parallel to the board that you're cutting. Skip tooth blades have every other tooth missing, which creates wider gullets between them than would otherwise be possible with narrow blades where the gullets can only be so deep. Hook teeth blades are very aggressive because the cutting face of each tooth angles downward toward the surface of the workpiece. Wide blades usually come with hooked teeth because they're most often used to cut thick stock where fast cutting is important to keep the blade from remaining in the curve too long and potentially overheating. Usually the narrower the blade, the more teeth per inch, but skip tooth configurations make it possible to have fewer teeth on narrower blades, and the fewer the teeth, the wider the gullets between them. Wider gullets clear the dust more effectively. Now this is critical because heat is your enemy. An overheated blade will dull quickly, and a dull blade is not going to cut straight. Blades with too many teeth also cut more slowly, which causes the operator to apply more pressure, potentially flexing the blade and creating a dish cut. I found that a good balance to clear the chips effectively is a 3 tooth per inch blade if I'm working with 1/2 inch or thicker material. Changing a bandsaw blade is a pain in the butt, so I like to do it as little as possible. Unfortunately, there's no single do-it-all bandsaw blade that you can just put on your saw and leave there. But you don't necessarily have to have a different blade for every curve you're going to cut. It depends on the type of work you do most often. You may be able to get away with 2 or 3 different blades. For example, if you mostly work with 3/4 inch thick boards, as a lot of weekend woodworkers do, then a 3/8 inch wide, 3-tooth per inch flex back carbon steel blade may be the most useful to you. If you properly install and tension it, you can cut pretty straight with a 3/8 inch blade. You can even do some resawing with it. And it's just narrow enough for the most common curves you're likely to cut. Of course, occasionally you will need to cut tighter curves than you can with a 3/8 inch wide blade. And so I also like to have a 1/4 inch wide, 4-tooth per inch flex back carbon steel blade on hand. Notice I said 4 teeth per inch on this one, where the 3/8 inch blade was 3 teeth per inch. That's because there will come times when you're working with stock thinner than a 1/2 inch thick. And in that case, you'll get a cleaner cut with that extra tooth per inch. So you can grab your 1/4 inch blade, even if you're not making a tight curve, put that in and use it for that thinner material. So you get more versatility with just 2 blades, the 3-tooth per inch, 3/8 inch blade, and the 4-tooth per inch, 1/4 inch blade. Now, if you also build a lot of furniture, then you're probably going to make a lot of straight cuts for joinery, like tenons, and you may be resawing thicker materials. So in that case, even though you could do that with your 3/8 inch blade, if you do a lot of it, you might want a 1/2 inch or wider, 3-tooth per inch hardback blade for those cuts. That hardback is going to make it a little easier to avoid drift in your cuts, and the 1/2 inch is going to be a little bit better for the straight cuts. If you cut something with a lot of very tight curves, like bandsaw boxes, then you might want to look into a 3/16 or a 1/8 inch blade. But regardless, if you just examine your habits, you don't have to buy a different blade for every radius you're going to cut. You may be able to get by with just 2, 3, 4 at the most. And with the tips in this video, you should have no problem finding the right ones for your style of work. If you're looking for a place to buy your blades, I suggest sawblade.com. They'll have any size you need, they just make them up for you, and their blades are of excellent quality, and their prices are among the lowest anywhere. Plus, by supporting them, you support us and all the free content we produce, so thanks in advance for that. For more tips, tricks, and tutorials designed to make you a better woodworker, be sure to check out the latest issue of Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal. You can read and subscribe for free at stumpynubs.com. Happy bandsawing!